Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this afternoon presentation on Microsoft SharePoint. Before we get started here, we'll have the phones muted. And if you do have any questions, you have a couple choices here. You can raise your hand. If you see to the right, there will be a Go-To Webinar toolbar. If you don't see it, there'll be a white arrow that has a red background. If you just hit that, that'll open up your toolbar. And you can do one of two things. You can type in your questions, and I'll be more than happy to politely interrupt our presenters to ask any questions that you have on your behalf. Or if you can raise your hand, there's a hand icon there. You just hit it, and then it tells me you raised your hand, and then I can go ahead and unmute that line, and you can ask your questions directly to our presenters. So I'm going to go ahead and pass things over now to our presenters. Michael Sandoval, a Senior Network Engineer at NIMS & Associates, along with his colleague Carlos Hernandez, who's also a Network Engineer with NIMS & Associates.
Great. Thanks, Henry. Thanks, everybody, for spending your afternoon with us. Today we want to talk about untapping your business potential with Microsoft SharePoint. Carlos Hernandez and I have been really excited with SharePoint, so we're really excited to give this presentation. So let's get going. So I've been with NIMS & Associates for over 10 years. I started working with SharePoint back in 2001 when I used to work at a large regional CPA firm. And it's been great. SharePoint was a little bit harder to implement for companies of a smaller size. Now with SharePoint Online, we've been having a lot more traction and bringing it to companies of all sizes. And Carlos, can you introduce yourself?
Yes. Yes, hello. My name is Carlos Hernandez. I've been with NIMS for about 4 years. I previously worked as an office manager and internal IT support for a small business. And I'm a certified solutions associate in Office 365. I frequently work with clients using SharePoint. That includes migrating data to SharePoint, building their SharePoint sites, developing workflows, designing and implementing forms, and just the sites and pages for their SharePoint. And as an office manager, I developed experience, managing processes and organization. And SharePoint provides a great tool for, managing processes for the clients I work with. And so I guess that whole working as office manager and then learning SharePoint kind of just made a perfect fit. And that's about me.
Great. So today we want to talk about, can you click the next slide, Carlos? Oh. Thank you. So today we want to start with, we'll give an overview of what exactly is SharePoint. Some of the clients that I have, and they never use SharePoint. They can get a little bit confused on what exactly it is. So we'll kind of go through some of the basic information of SharePoint and the different features and what makes up SharePoint sites and how you can use them. And we'll give demonstrations, which would be the bulk of the presentation today, on the different components of SharePoint. We will go through how you could use SharePoint to share and organize your information. We will go through some other basic examples of maybe an employee portal and a basic workflow. And finally, we'll end with the future of SharePoint. Earlier this month, this year I should say, Microsoft had a presentation to kind of reassure everybody that they were fully invested in SharePoint and with their cloud-first, mobile-first initiative. And so there's a lot of exciting stuff coming down the road from Microsoft with SharePoint Online. It's a product that they are going to start investing a lot more resources and making it a lot user-friendly, a lot more accessible on a mobile device. So we'll go through some of those things at the end of the presentation. And of course, if you have any questions, we would answer those.
Okay, so what is SharePoint? For today's webinar, we're going to focus on SharePoint Online, which is part of the Office 365 services. In the slide, you'll see that SharePoint Online is a cloud-based version of SharePoint. When you think about SharePoint, think of it as your own organization's intranet. Like the internet, it is a web-based platform, but the objective of SharePoint is to deliver content to your users to achieve everyday work activities. As highlighted on the side, you use sites to share documents and information either internally, externally with partners or customers. And what makes SharePoint really useful is since it is a web-based product, it's easy for people to get to it. We don't, as engineers, we don't have to implement a VPN router or anything locally to give people access to files outside of the network. So what makes up of a SharePoint site? So in the previous slide, you saw the term site. SharePoint Online is made up of a bunch of sites or subsites. And then within those sites, there are pages. And that is the data you see when you are in SharePoint. And then on those pages are things called web parts. And we'll go there. And those web parts can display a variety of data and perform a variety of actions. Oftentimes, the web parts are connected to apps in SharePoint Online. And apps are also referred to as lists and libraries. On this slide, you see a few common ones listed. For example, a document library is a container that supports files such as Word, Excel, PowerPoint, PDF, etc. When you see the term library, that means it supports files of some type. The other type of common app is a list. For example, a task list is a list specifically designed to track tasks. Another app list listed that has a very specific function is survey. The survey app can support a variety of question types. The purpose of apps in SharePoint are to provide functions within the sites and or pages so you design that out of the box are easy to implement and manage.
So Carlos?
Yes?
Are those apps, do you have to be really technical or a coder to really implement them, or can you train somebody at a client site to use those applications and deploy it?
Yes, it's really easy to train people. So that app I mentioned was Survey. Survey, you say create a new question. You have a button. It tells you what kind of question is it. Is it a multiple choice or is it just a text? And then you go next question. There are advanced things you can do, but the purpose of apps is to provide some sort of functionality to your users that are really easy to implement. And you could, have internal staff do it, or NIMS can assist with, implementing different apps. So what is a SharePoint site really? So sites are organized into what are called site collections. And so here we have the Contuso site collection. And if you look at it, we have the parent site, and it has two subsites, employees and finance. Then those have some subsites, which are the orange tiles, including the web, recreational activities, and auditing for each site respectively. So what I'm going to do today, and we're going to kind of move into the demo here in a moment, I'm going to use this recreational activities site as my, recreational activities as my demo. So without further ado, let's get into it. Just drag my window over here. So before I get into a scenario to kind of walk you through SharePoint, we're going to cover what I like to call the gears that was in libraries I mentioned earlier. So right now I'm on an employee portal SharePoint site. And I'm going to go to site contents, which I already opened. And this is showing me what is in this site. And I mentioned sites are made of lists and libraries. So you see here lists of type. I have a document library, so documents, employee resumes, site assets. Announcements is a special app, like we mentioned earlier, and the objective is a good place to put announcements. An announcements app, you could set an expiration. So, if you announce a new thing, you just say this, this expires in 7 days, and it will clear off the announcements. A calendar is a type of list, but we all know how calendars work. A links list, that's another list, and it's just a list of links. and a task list. But this is the site contents portion of a site, and it shows me what things are implemented on this site. But then I mentioned that sites are made of sites and or subsites. And in the employee site, right now we're in the employee site, it has subsites of IT web, recreational activities, and your HR resources. So we're going to go to the recreational activities. Actually, I want to go back to just employees, so let's come back here. So that's the gears of SharePoint, more or less, the behind the curtain, the list and libraries. So now in this scenario, we have a new employee. He just started recently. He's gone through all his training, but he's wondering, like, how can I, make some friends with this new workforce? I'm new to town or whatever. So he comes to his company SharePoint site, and he goes to the employee subsite. So we're in the employee site right now. Right here on the home page, we see this recreational activities. Well, that seems like a good place to make some connections within the workplace. So I click on that, and to kind of cover the web parts, these things right here are called promoted links. You add that up. I add it as a web part on my home page, and then when I click that little tile, it takes me to wherever I'm linked. So it's going to load me to the recreational activities. Now, the way SharePoint is built is there are sites, and you create new site, add a subsite. And sites have templates. There's a handful of templates. This is actually called a community site. And so it comes with a bunch of pre-built parts. I get the discussion web part right here in the middle, and other features that foster kind of social activity between your users. And so this is a community site. The most common site you're going to see is called a team site. And that comes with a document library, a notebook, and some common apps. And then you add apps as needed. So anyways, this is a community site. So I'm the new user. I came here. I'm like, okay, I see this post, soccer after work. I really like playing soccer, so let me click on that and see what that's about. So here is Zrinka had posted a thing, anyone interested in playing soccer, so-and-so's going, they're playing at this field, and, that interests you or whatever. I could go in and I'm going to go, ooh, I'm going to reply to this. So, I'm new here. Sounds great. I'll be there. And I reply, and it will show up below. So I logged in as a mod administrator, and now here's my post. People could reply to my post if they wanted to. They could like it. I'll like Zrinka's. And since she posted it, she'll get notifications about these things. And I have her open in a different area. Let me go to her mailbox and bring that over. Freshen that up. Get the new email. So this is the one who posted the comment, Zrinka. You see her picture right here. I have an alert that someone replied to my discussion. So I'm new here. Sounds great. I'll be there. So, if I've uploaded my image and whatnot, through the discussion web part, I've introduced myself to a coworker, said I'll be there at the soccer activity. Since that person posted the discussion, they got a notification that I replied to it. It says, mod administrator replied to your discussion, soccer after work. And that was a discussion web part. What's kind of nifty about it is you could, SharePoint, oftentimes pretty powerful tool. In this reply, I could format my text. I could insert different items, video, a link, upload a file, and it will kind of create a link to that file. And just wanted to demonstrate that little part. So let's go back to just recreational activities. Let's go to the home page. So again, as a new employee, it provided a good place for me to find a way to interact with my new coworkers, and that was pretty cool. And yeah, I guess the objective of this demo was to kind of show you what's happening behind the curtains, and that was the site contents, and then just kind of show that depending on where you are, that page could provide relevant content. So again, we're on the home page of employees, and this web part is calling out important areas. So this is IT Web. If you have an issue for IT, you go there. This is record activities, or there's stuff for your HR resources, which we'll visit later, and I'll do a demo on that. And beneath that, we have another web part where it's a spotlight of an employee, but we can put any content there. But that is kind of just showing you lists and libraries and how they kind of work to provide content and or interaction to your SharePoint users. And then I'll pass it back over to Michael, who's going to cover sharing information. So let me make him the presenter. Let's go change presenter. Michael Sandoval.
Okay, so let's see, show screen 2. Okay, are you able to see my screen?
Yes.
Are you able? Okay, great, thank you. So within SharePoint, we have, in this demo, we have the different department subsites. And just like you would in a company, you possibly could have like an O drive for operations, an L drive for legal, for example. But in addition to just sharing files, each department SharePoint site, you have the ability to share documents, obviously, but you have the ability to share other things like announcements through this announcements web part, or a list of issues that you want to make sure everybody who visits your sites has a quick snapshot of the issues within the department. And then here on the right-hand side, we are even showing a slideshow of a PowerPoint presentation I want to make sure that everybody goes through. And so this is a really great way of having a site that shows kind of the most important, relevant information for the department or the site that you want to present to your users. So here, one of the most popular web parts within SharePoint is a document library web part, and that's where you store all your documents. So I'm going to go in there. And you can see that just like your traditional file server, a document library web part has the ability to store documents in folders. And in order to access or find a document that you're looking for, like a traditional file server, you can always sort by a name of a file, when it was last modified, to maybe quickly find the files that you're looking for. So that is great. You can do that now within a traditional file server. But the great thing about SharePoint is that because this is a website, you have access to this information and documents anywhere as long as you have internet access. So another way that you would be able to find the information or the documents that you're looking for is through this little search window. And so if I was to search for, let's say, form, this would search for not only the word form in a folder or in a file name, but it would bring up any document that has this word within the document itself. So this is a great feature of SharePoint in that its search capabilities are very powerful, a lot more so than what you would have in a traditional file server. If I wanted to just look for, let's say, documents with the word form on them, I could use this little file name : form. Oops. Not file name, sorry. And so this would say, okay, just show me the file names with the word form on them. And that would quickly bring up the documents that I was looking for. So search is a very powerful utility within SharePoint. And another powerful feature of document libraries is not only can we store documents, but we also have the ability to add what's called metadata to each document. So this ratings column and this document type column is metadata that we have assigned to this document library. And it allows us to kind of have more information about the specific documents. So this ratings column, for example, allows us to rate the documents, which we use then on the home page to just give us a list of maybe the highly rated documents in this document library. And you know, this document type column, we could use it maybe to tag all the documents that are maybe proposals. So traditionally, when you're looking for a proposal, for example, in a normal file server, you probably have to navigate through some subfolders of maybe of the client name, and then each client has maybe another set of subfolders, and then you would have a proposal for that one client. But let's say you wanted to quickly just bring up all the proposals. Instead of having to go to the different documents, with metadata, you could select a metadata tag to say, okay, just show me all the proposals in this document library. So that would be a real quick and easy way to just show you proposals within a document library, anywhere in the document library, whether it's in the root of the document library or buried 10 folders down and in a location you didn't even know was there. So metadata is a very powerful way to organize your documents, and it can be very complex but also very powerful. So it's something that I highly recommend that you talk to your consultant about, ways that you could possibly implement metadata in your different document libraries in SharePoint. Another really powerful feature of SharePoint and the document libraries is the ability to share a document with anybody on the internet. So let's say I want to share this timesheet with maybe a outside consultant that I'm working with on a specific project. I would check the box of the document and then hit share. And this brings up the share dialog box. Here I would type in that consultant's email address, and SharePoint will warn you, hey, this is somebody outside your organization, just to make sure that that's really what you wanted to do. With this link, you can specify whether this person outside the organization can have edit rights or just view rights. When you hit share, the person will receive an email message telling them, hey, somebody's is sharing a file with you. So here I'm showing the mailbox of this external user who has received an email message from the administrator saying that they have shared this Excel file with you. So if I click on it, it quickly takes me just to that file. It's not giving me any other access other than to that one document I wanted to share with them. So that's how you would quickly share a document with somebody outside your organization. And the great thing about that is that you are not emailing documents back and forth with the person outside your company. When the person makes a change to this document on SharePoint, you're able to see that change right away. But let's say that not only did you need to share a document, but maybe you needed to share all the documents in this document library. Maybe you outsource your sales and marketing department or your HR department. And you want to make sure that the outside person always has access to all the documents that you have. Instead of having to create them a username for your domain, maybe give them access or some kind of VPN connection, we can simply share an entire document library just like we did in sharing a file. If I go here and I say shared with, oops, I can invite people. And again, you can type in their email address and hit share. I've already done that just to save some time. And so here, an example of me sharing a document library with somebody outside the organization. And as you can see, this person outside my company has access to the document library in the operations site, but they don't have access to anything else, not even any other content that was in the operations site. So The sharing of documents can be very secure and allows you to be very granular on what you share with the people outside your company. And I think that's a great feature and allows you to really collaborate with people outside your company, but in a safe manner. You want to be really careful when sharing documents just to make sure that you're not sharing more than you should, but as you can see, it's very easy to do. And let's see, what else? Let's say that maybe I'm in accounting and I want to know when anybody uploads a new document to this document library. Maybe I want to know when somebody uploads a new invoice so that I can make sure I add it to my list of to-do items. Within each document library, you have the ability to receive an alert. And this is great because you can say, you know, just send me an email message when, maybe only when new items are added. And, you know, I don't need to know right away, but maybe send me a weekly summary or a daily summary. This is another great feature that allows you to, I think, always be up to date with the information that your people are creating without having to always constantly send an email, hey, I created a new document of XYZ, but this allows you to be proactive and quickly get access to the information that you need. So there's a lot more things about SharePoint, but these are just some of the kind of the key things that I see my clients using all the time. And now I'll hand it over back to Carlos, who I think is going to go through a demo of some workflow.
That is correct. Let me get the slideshow going back up here. And there we go. Okay, so here's, let's talk about workflows. Okay, in all organizations, there are common workflows and or processes that we do daily. And one significant benefit of SharePoint is letting SharePoint automate and manage some of those workflows for you. So what precisely is a SharePoint workflow? Well, we'll borrow Microsoft's definition. SharePoint workflow is like an automated flowchart that takes a lot of the labor, guesswork, and randomness out of your standard work processes. Let's see here, let me bring up this. So as an example, in this slide, I have a document approval workflow. And you see here, someone uploads a document, it gets routed to my reviewers or my approvers. Anna is the first approver, and if she disapproves, then it's rejected. If she approves, it then has to go to Sean, who approves it, and then it's accepted. So instead of having Anna and Sean have to, you know, communicate back and forth about, hey, have you approved this or that? You know, Sean needed to check the status. He could go to the task list that SharePoint is managing for the workflow. So and like a good example of where this would be maybe in use is you have invoices and you have people approve your invoices. So Anna is the first approver and Sean's the final approver, for example. So the advantage of deploying workflows in SharePoint is that the process will get automated, but you also can keep track of them. So say there's a manager for Sean's manager, so Sean's not in charge, but the manager wants to see, you know, how many invoices are out there and what's going on. That manager could look at the workflow task list and just see which ones are still out there, or if they have a lot of invoices in queue and whatnot. And I'll show you these items here in a little bit. But that task list allows us to also design dashboards for our key stakeholders, so they could keep tabs on any workflows you have running. And then SharePoint comes with some out of the box, which means takes very little configuration. We could, you know, as Michael asked earlier, could, you know, users do this? These out of the box ones are pretty simple, but you could also develop custom workflows, and those, you know, not any typical end user is going to do. So generally, you know, if you want to do something custom, you have to talk about it with your engineer, design the process, and kind of just go back and forth until you've nailed down how you want the workflow to run, and then we go through and design it, implement it, and test it and see how it goes. But the out-of-the-box ones are approval, and that one routes a document or other item to designated people. You could collect feedback, which just, you know, collect feedback from designated people. collect signatures, they're all there listed. 3 state, if you want to check an item through 3 different phases. And publishing approval is just like approval, but it's for publishing content. So let's kind of demonstrate how this works. So let me get my correct window here. And I believe it's this one. Actually, no. Yeah, it is. Okay. There we go. And let's go to employees. Okay, so I'm on the employee site. I'm logged in as the HR director, Zrinka. And what we do in this, in our HR resources area, is we have users upload resumes. And the reason why we have them upload resumes is when we do proposals for projects that we're trying to win, we include resumes of any of the consultants we're going to use on that project. So we want to make sure our consultants, our users, are keeping their SharePoint or their resumes are up to date. So within the employee site, and then under that, the subsite HR resources, we had a document library called employee resumes. And Michael went over document libraries a little earlier. This is just a regular little document library, but what I did is I turned a workflow on it. So let's look at this one that's in progress. Let's click on this in progress link. And what's to do is kind of bring up a visual representation of what this workflow is doing when it decides to load. We're going to look below this little chart here that finally loads when it does. So since I clicked on the in progress, it kind of gives me some information about this particular task that's running. And so I can see it was assigned to my HR director. The task name is please approve sample resume. It got a due date of 7/27, and I'll show you how we did that. And it's related, the content that it's related to is that sample resume that was uploaded. And this is kind of a visual representation of what's going on. We also get a history of that task. So, it was uploaded on 7/20, so that workflow got initiated, and then it created a task. Because the first thing to do, once it initiates the workflow, it's assigned to send to Zrinka to approve this document. So we're going to go to the task itself. And I kind of mentioned dashboard earlier. This is where, we could see how many resumes maybe we have left to approve or whatnot. So if there was a manager that needed to monitor stuff, well, actually I clicked on the wrong thing. But this is actually how you approve the task. So right here, what I'm looking at is it says this workflow task applies to sample resume. So that's the document that got uploaded. And then it was uploaded by the mod administrator. It received a comment of please review and approve employee resume. It's due 7/27. And as the approver, I could approve, reject, cancel, request change, reassign task. And if I approve it, it will just mark it as approved and send an email to the submitter that it was approved. Reject it, mark it as reject, send back to sender that was rejected. And I get assigned to other people if necessary, or just request change, we'll send them an email. And let's go back to your HR resources. Actually, and then let's go to the task list. So we're going to go into site contents to get to the task list really quickly. Whoops, that's the wrong one. I left it. The subsites and sites. Oh, man. Okay, I'm on the right site. And what I do for clients so that they don't have to go hunting around for the task list is I create a little kind of administrator dashboard so they don't have to go hunting for these things. And for instance, like if the HR director logs into her HR site, at the bottom of her homepage is a web part just for her. It's called audience targeting. And in that, I have links to important locations that she uses, but only she uses. And this task area right here would be a link I would point her to so that she wouldn't have to hunt her employee resumes, which I went to the wrong one again. Oh, man.
Yeah, workflow tasks.
Yeah. Let's go here, employee resumes. We'll get here a different way. I had it earlier open in tab and I killed it. So it's, oh man, sorry about that. So it's workflow tasks. I don't know why. There we go. Nope. Active tasks. Okay, I don't know what I did with it. That sucks. Okay, under. Well, I'll get to that later. I'll find it out in just a second. So what I'm going to do is walk through how it actually works when you do one. So I have logged into the mod administrator's account, which is right here. And we're going to go to the employee, your HR resources. And I'm going to have him upload his resume, which I already did earlier, and it's already been approved, but we're going to update it. I'm going to do, updated due to recent project experience. And what I enforced on this library is check in, check out, so that if the file is actually not checked in yet. And the reason you would employ check in, check out is if you really wanted to manage the integrity of your documents so that we don't get versioning issues. So I'm going to check it in after uploading it. And that's what that little green icon indicates, that it's not checked in. So, modified for recent project experience. Click OK. And it should change this workflow back to in progress. It was approved earlier, but now it's back to in progress. So we're going to go back to the approvers account, go to mail, and you should receive that email any second. And I'll just show you while we wait what the emails look like. So when she receives a task, she receives this email, please approve sample resume. That's one we looked at earlier. And it says, approval started by, this would be the person who uploaded it. And then the comment I put in there is this comment, and we'll cover that. And then so if I click here, it will take me to the actual file itself. So I want to review the file. So, whoa. So this is on the employee, it's coming from the employee site, and Mod uploaded his modified resume. So I see Hernandez resume. So I'm like, okay, let's check it out. So I'm going to click on the little link. I could review the file there if I wanted to. Otherwise, I'm going to go back to the employee site, employee resumes. I'll refresh here. And we'll see it's back to in progress again. So I'm going to go and work on it. And I'm going to click here. Oh, there's that task link. So here's some of my tasks. I'll go there this way. As soon as it loads. And like I said, usually what I would do for people who may have to manage workflows is I create them links to their task list so they can have quick, easy access. So this is a task list. This was the one from the past that I approved, but now that we've done another one, it's a whole new workflow. And so I'm going to go through and check it out. Click on it. And we'll load that window we saw earlier about approve, reject, resume, or yeah. So then here's my approval options. Again, if I forgot the document, I could click here and I could review the document again. But we're just going to click approve. And that's going to send an email to mod administrator. And so we can make sure that process gets run and everything gets changed to approve. I'll kind of go over how these things are designed. So remember, it's on the employee resume document library. So I go to employee resumes, and then the workflow is running against this library. So I'm going to click here in library, go to my settings, and check out the workflow. I think Michael mentioned content types, or maybe not. He mentioned metadata, and we could build content types that have metadata. And what a content type does is creates specific values for your documents that you upload. And so these workflows can be triggered against content types. It can be triggered against the list completely. Document is a content type, so I'm going to trigger it against document since they're all Word documents that we're uploading. And right here, I see against document, I have the approval workflow running of the resume approvals. So I'm going to click on it, and this is going to tell me about that workflow. This is the name of the workflow, the task list, the workflow history, so where it kind of tracks what happened. And down here are when is it going to run? When I create items, change items, and who can actually manipulate the workflow. They have to have above edit. This next screen, though, is where we kind of really design the approvers and some other stuff. So I'm assigning it to the HR director. Now, in the workflow slide I showed, we had 2 stages. So if I wanted to, if I had a second person, I could either have that person be the second stage. So at this point here, order, I would go to all at once or serial. And so if I added like a second user, I had 2 people that reviewed resumes. They both, if I did parallel, they both see it, and then I can also do it in stages. And you do it through this little button here, and just depending on what your needs are. Earlier, you saw the text in there. This is where we put the text for the request, like what is the purpose of this workflow. In this case, please review and improve the resume. I mentioned everything gets a due date, depending on criteria set up. So this one we're doing, you have a 7 days to approve the task. And I'm saying from the duration units, so 7 days. The units can be weeks or months, so for 1 week or whatever. What I could do for this one is CC someone when it's been approved or ends, and that purpose is so maybe they don't have an activity, maybe they just want to be in the loop. So it doesn't assign them a task, but they know that user A uploaded a new resume and that's been assigned, and then when it's ended, they'll know when it's been completed. But they aren't assigned any particular task. And these are just some flags you can implement on the end. But that's how I get to 7 days. That's how I get to the tasks, and kind of get to the point where out of the box, see, this isn't too complex to create. And then so we're going to go back to the other user. And mod, and he should have got an email that his approval was completed. So the HR director approved it, and he got approval as completed, and it was approved by her on 7/21 at 12:43 p.m. And that's just kind of showing really quickly how workflows work in SharePoint, and using the approval workflow, and that they're pretty easy to manage. They're not too complex to create out of the box ones, but you can also create custom workflows depending on your needs. And I now will let Michael talk about, I don't need that slide, talk about the future of SharePoint.
Thanks, Carlos. So I think workflows are a fantastic way of helping your company do things more efficiently. And so I tell my clients, anything that you do on a regular basis, let us know, because there might be a way we can automate some of that through a workflow. Carlos showed a sample workflow of approving essentially documents that get uploaded to a document library. but we can do a lot more complex things with workflows in SharePoint, maybe route invoices, approve days off, or approve expense reports. There's a whole bunch of things that examples of workflows that we should definitely implement at your site if you are using SharePoint Online. So now moving on to the future of SharePoint, like I said earlier, a few months ago or a month or two ago, Microsoft had a presentation on the future of SharePoint, and they basically were kind of driving their initiative of being cloud first, mobile first with anything that Microsoft does these days. And that includes SharePoint. So a lot of the development that they're putting into SharePoint will first show up on SharePoint Online, and then will eventually trickle down to the SharePoint that companies have on site. So they are quickly improving the SharePoint Online experience, and they're improving it in some of the pain points that they have at the moment with OneDrive and OneDrive for Business, but they're making that experience pretty seamless. So whether you're accessing SharePoint on your computer or on your mobile device, they want to make that experience very similar. Where right now it could almost look like two different applications. So they're making the mobile experience a lot better. They're making the document libraries a little bit easier to use, a little bit more streamlined, and yet powerful. And so I think there's going to be a lot of improvements in the next couple of months with SharePoint Online. And so I know that I'm really excited to see kind of what they come up with, especially in the mobile area, because it'd be great to have a workflow, for example. Let's say you want to upload an expense report. You want to be able to have the manager open up her mobile and quickly approve maybe an expense report so that the accounting department can reimburse them. So I'm really excited about the future of SharePoint, and I'm not sure, Carlos, do you have any other things to say about what you saw in that presentation from Microsoft?
No, I think you covered it. I think they're really trying to focus on that cloud first, because otherwise the other approach, sometimes the things that work really great on-premise don't work really well in the cloud. So it just means our SharePoint Online consumers are going to have a good product. And yeah, so that's about all I have on that.
Yeah. So we're kind of almost out of time, but this would be, if you have any questions, please let us know. Let's see.
Okay, I've opened up the line, so if anyone is free to ask your questions out directly to our presenters, please do.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi.
Hi. I missed a little bit of the front of this. Do you have another webinar that's coming up on this with the same information?
We don't have one scheduled at the moment, right, Henry?
We don't, but this webinar is being recorded, so I'd be more than happy once I get it posted to send you the link.
That would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Yeah, I had a question. The part that interests me the most about SharePoint is the documents library. And I was wondering, since most of this looks like it's a, like kind of host, all the documents are kind of hosted online, does SharePoint like automatically keep like an offline version of these documents on your computer or something like that?
That's a good question. So the question was, because all these documents are hosted online, does it keep a copy locally on your computer? It does not automatically keep a local copy of the document on your computer. there are ways where you can synchronize a document library down to your computer, but most of the times your document libraries are so large that you probably don't want to synchronize the entire library down to your C drive. But you do have the option to save shortcuts to documents that are hosted on SharePoint Online, and even maybe even open up a folder within a document library. So that's so no, not really out of the box. You can, if your document library was small enough and you had enough room on your C drive to synchronize it down to your C drive.
Okay.